and welcome to Tyranny Reads, Reviews, Discusses, Monologues about everything and anything, and that's on period. Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. So, I wanted to do a fantasy trilogies unpopular edition. I had done a previous video where I talked about fantasy duologies that are not so popular. So this is like the trilogy version-ish. So I'm going to be talking about 4 books. Well, 4 trilogies. So, yeah, let's get started. So the first book that I'm going to be talking about will be The Wolf of Oren-Yaro, which is by K.S. Villoso. Now, this book follows a queen. Let me just read a little synopsis here. It says, from an incredible new voice in epic fantasy comes the tale of a queen who must unite her divided land, even if she's hated by the very people she's trying to protect. So basically, this queen's kingdom was trapped in war. So she made the decision to marry the son of a rivaling country or rivaling people to kind of foster peace between the 2 tribes or 2 kingdoms, whatever you might call it. And so I guess like pretty much her people resent her for that. So basically she's surrounded by enemies, literally married to a rival, and then also, you know, scorned by her people, whereas she was trying to make this decision to keep everyone safe. Fast forward a couple of years later, she has given birth. She has a son, and all of a sudden her husband disappears, takes off at night, and never to be heard from for a long time. So then she gets this message one day and it's like, hey, you know I've been missing. Why don't you come to XYZ place and I will tell you everything that's been happening. So she goes back and forth with her advisors and she's like, is this a trap? Do you think this is a trap? But I need to know, like I need him here because he's part of the reason why we have peace. If we don't have him here in the country or in the kingdom, we're going to go to war. So she's really turned. And obviously she has her son that she's trying to protect. So one of the things that I would say about this book is that it is very unpopular. Well, not unpopular. It's very, it's not really what you typically read in epic fantasy because this is a woman that is a queen. She is a mother and she's also a wife. So she's doing like different roles and she did it really well, right? So, you know, Queen Taylan decides to go to look for her husband. And what happens is just, it's a ton of betrayal and political mess and just, you know, that kind of stuff. So if you like political intrigue and those kind of things in your books, Wolf of Oren-Yaro is a really good one. The second book is the Ikessar, Falcon, and the third book will be the Dragon of Jin-Sayeng. So if you wanted to pick it up, it's completed. It's very, very fantastic. Like I think like a lot of, you know, when I read it, I was like, wow, this is a, you know, fully fleshed story. It wasn't my fave, right? Because I don't like political intrigue and it's like the political backstabbing and it's crazy. It's a lot. But I think at the end of the day, it was still a good book. So the next book that I'm going to talk about will be Crown of Feathers by Nicki Preto. I probably talked about Nicki Preto a lot on this channel, but that's because I feel like this Crown of Feathers was a very phenomenal book. And I don't see a lot of people talking about it. And I'm just like, why? We follow Veronica, who is basically brainwashed by her sister. In this world, the magic has to do with Phoenix Riders. So we have people who have the tendencies to be merged with the phoenixes, and they are called animages. So they can ride the phoenix and fight and all that kind of stuff. We also have this new regime of people called the Golden Empire, I believe, who are trying to wipe out all Phoenix Riders. So basically, the Phoenix Riders are an endangered species. The reason why that kingdom or those people are trying to kill the Phoenix Riders is because the world as it was before was destroyed by 2 Phoenix Riders who were popular. They were sisters and they were very powerful, and they they fought, they disagreed with themselves, and it literally destroyed everything. So the new people who came into the system are like, we do not condone any magic, and anybody being an animage or having a bond with a phoenix is so you kind of follow this girl, Veronica, and her sister, and it's actually interesting. And there's also like some kind of like insta love with her and Tristan. So I think it was a really good read. I read this a while back and I still remember the story so much. In fact, whenever I read it, the book 3, which is Wings of Shadow, had not come out. And I was in Barnes and Noble just on release day trying to get that book. So if you like, something like I want to say Children of Blood and Bone, those kind of young books with younger characters, but a well fleshed out magic system. I'm not even kidding. Like, this book is fantastic. You don't want to miss it. So pick it up. The next book I'm going to talk about. Oh, the books in that series include Crown of Feathers being book 1, Heart of Flames being book 2. The last one is Wings of Shadows, like I mentioned. So next one will be Scythe by Neal Shusterman. I'm actually twinning. So I think this is also someone else I've actually talked a lot on this channel. I think is Neal Shusterman, is because Scythe was just so, like, it blew my mind. So this is a dystopian story. We follow 2 young people, Rowan and Citra, who are apprentices to this organization called the Scythe. Now, in this dystopian world, death has been conquered, so people don't die anymore, like disease, all of that. There's nothing like that. It's all been cured. We're all good. The problem is people are still breeding, so there's the possible, not even the possible, it's very sure that at some certain point in the future, Earth will face overpopulation issues. So the government decides that, hey, we need to figure out how to make a way. So what they do is they create this policemen, if you will, called Scythe, who their major purpose is to literally off some people to curb the rate of overpopulation. So basically, and then for people to become Scythes, obviously you have to go through rigorous training because you're literally basically taking a life, right? So they have to go through this apprenticeship where they work with a specific site, and he tells them, you have to adopt a killing style. I mean, it's so out of this world dystopian thinking, but it was so good. So whenever Rowan and Citra are going through this process, it appears that, the side organization is actually going through some upheavals, and they are drawn into this, big mystery. And it's literally like everything is not what it seems like. Also, we do have a very interesting AI component in this book, artificial intelligence, who's called, I'm not going to say who's called, but it's actually really, really, I would compare this with Red Rising in that sense, where Red Rising is also dystopian-ish, and this is kind of like the same, but let's say in a more modern setting, and we're still on Earth pretty much. But yeah, the other books in this series include Thunderhead and the Toe, and this is a collector's edition of Scythe. It's so gorgeous. I do have the original copies there somewhere on my shelf, but you can see how gorgeous this book is. So yeah, read that. The last book that I'm going to talk about will be The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. So in this book, we follow Sir Conrad von Volt, who von Volt is it's like he's like a judge, jury, and executioner, and he works for the Empire. So he will only, I guess, answer to the king pretty much. So basically, their jobs as justices is to travel the neighboring countries and cities and administer justice where injustice has been done. So von Volt is he also has this apprentice called Helena Sedenka, who is like his scribe, and she's taking notes of the cases that he is overseeing and all of that stuff. Von Volz, through this, just doing his job, stumbles upon a plot to overthrow the Empire of the Wolf. And it has to do with some questionable monks and a religious order, pretty much. One thing I will say is this is more fantasy horror leaning, where you see some eldritch magic things going on. And Von Volt, as a justice, actually has the ability to do magic. And magic in this sense is they have ways to manipulate the mind. For example, if they have a prisoner that's committed a crime but does not want to confess, Von Volt has some fantastical elements in his belt that he can utilize to, get a confession. So, we follow Von Volt and Helena and some of his other workers as they try to uncover this plot to basically kill the king and overthrow the current regime. But it does get like grimy because we're talking about like ectoplasmic, like oozing entities and like spiritual things. So it's fantasy, but it's horror, but it's so good. I devoured this book. In this book, we actually witness a real court scene, like a courtroom where you have the defendants, you have the guilty person or the person who's on trial, and you see people in the gallery. I mean, it's so fascinating. It's such a interesting perspective on that whole topic or whatever. The other books in the series include The Tyranny of Fate, and the last one is The Empire of the Wolf. So these are 4 trilogies, fantasy, that are, totally unpopular or underhyped. I don't really see or hear a lot of people talking about them, but they are fantastic. I've read them. I will read them again. I definitely recommend you to pick them up. So let me know if you've read any of the books I mentioned, or if you have fantasy trilogies that are not so out there or you don't really hear people talking about. Let me know in the comments below. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.